Are you thinking about a move to Colorado Springs? Before you pack a single box, here's 23 things you have to know that could make or break your move.
We're talking trails, schools, open spaces, HOAs, taxes, all of it.
I'm Chris Beresford, and I've lived in Colorado Springs for over 20 years. I've lived from the west side of town to the plains out in Falcon and north to Black Forest. I've had a real estate team here in town for over a decade, and we sold over $220 million in real estate.
And my name's Kyle Pettit. I've only been here for 3 or 4 years, but I had the experience of moving my family here and starting to build a family. I know what it's like to transition into Colorado Springs and get your life rolling in a new city. Pikes Peak is not just a landmark of Colorado Springs. It's kind of the culture of Colorado Springs. That giant, beautiful mountain behind me that is covered in snow is our resident 14,000 foot mountain. It's 14,115 feet. And it is just this landmark that everybody knows and loves in Colorado Springs. You can see it from over 100 miles away on a clear day. Now, something really amazing about Pikes Peak is that it's called America's Mountain, because back in 1893, the song America the Beautiful was written, inspired by Pikes Peak herself. In fact, before it was called Pikes Peak, it was called Tava. So you'll see that name referenced throughout the city. Now, a couple other cool ways that you can get to the top. Number one, the incline is the start of the bar trail. So that's very cool. That's that 2,768 steps of death, just right there on the face. You could also take the Cog Railway. That also starts basically at the same point that you would start the incline, but it's this beautiful red train, open air cabins that you can take right to the top, which is super cool. Basically, if you can race something up Pikes Peak, it's happening. There's bike races, feet races, but one of the craziest things is that in the summer, they'll race motorcycles and cars up that thing because there's a toll road that you can also drive at a more leisurely pace. And by the way, it's also very scary. It's a 19-mile drive that takes you, it's super tight switchbacks. There's some spots where like you're driving over and it just feels like you're gonna drive off of a cliff, but it takes you all the way to the top to a very new, actually, visitor center. By the way, at the visitor center, there's some cool history up there, and there's donuts and coffee, and there's a little shop. There's a huge vistas that you can walk around. It's a really, really cool spot. And then lastly, something that's pretty cool is on New Year's Eve, it does not matter the conditions. There's this group called the Ataman, and they will go to the top, and on New Year's Eve, it does not matter, and they will do fireworks from the top of Pikes Peak. But Pikes Peak, you can always identify it. It'll have snow on it all the way through July, but it is just the biggest mountain, and it is the only 14,000 foot mountain on the Front Range. You cannot miss it, and it will be a place that you will absolutely be visiting.
So why is Colorado Springs here in the first place? I'm gonna give you just a short little brief history that, I don't know, as a local that's been here for a long time, I think is pretty cool. So a lot of people think Colorado Springs, 1871, it's when General Palmer came and founded the city, but there's actually a deeper history than that. So in 1859, Colorado City, old Colorado City that we're sitting in right now, was actually the first territorial capital of the Colorado Territory. So that history goes back to 1859 as a city. Like I said, that's old Colorado City. And then in 1871, General Palmer founded Colorado Springs proper. He was a Civil War general and veteran, a bit of a hero of the war, if you will. He was a railroad executive, and he had this vision for Colorado Springs. He wanted it to be this master planned city that was luxurious and had resorts. And he kind of hit the mark a little bit, honestly. In 1871, when the city was founded, the downtown area was laid out. And there's some beautiful streets over there. Wood Avenue, Cascade, Tejon, big homes, just a gorgeous downtown area that dates all the way back to then. And one of the reasons that it's so beautiful is the tree-lined streets. Now, back in 1871, what is currently downtown Colorado Springs was largely an arid plain. There really wasn't much there. So he set out to plant a ton of trees. So a lot of the trees that are in downtown Colorado Springs and the greater Colorado Springs area are actually trees that were planted back in the late 1800s. So that's when kind of the first part of Colorado Springs started out. But the first thing that brought people here, Europeans, to the Colorado Springs area was gold. In 1859, 1860 timeframe, that's when there was a gold rush on Pikes Peak. They found gold, and that was the very beginnings of the city. And then in the late 1800s, that's when the big gold rush happened in Cripple Creek, which is up on the backside of Pikes Peak. When that happened, that's when Colorado Springs largely blew up. So that's when you had just a ton of money coming down out of the mountains. Colorado Springs was the distribution center, if you will, where all the trade came and went out of. So at that point in time, Colorado Springs had a nickname of the City of Millionaires because so much money was made in gold mining in the Cripple Creek area. That's when we look at Wood Avenue, North Cascade, that old town, old north end of Colorado Springs. All those big, huge mansions were all built in that late 1800s time period. And in addition to the gold rush, there was also a lot of thought, like a lot of the western United States and Rocky Mountains, it was this high altitude, dry climate that was good for your health. That's what was thought at the time. So a lot of people with tuberculosis moved here to try to kind of better their health. Now, if we fast forward a little bit into the 20th century, really that's when Colorado Springs kind of formed into what we see today. It became a huge military town. In the early 1940s, World War II time, that's when Fort Carson was founded. And then in the mid 20th century, 1950s, that's when the United States Air Force Academy was founded, NORAD, Northcom, and Cheyenne Mountain that everybody's heard about and seen in the movies. That was all in the mid 1900s. And the city just kind of continued to grow. And now it wasn't really based on gold or the military. It was just based on the fact that it was a great place to live. And so many people started to know about Colorado Springs. So that's why we see today a city that started out as a tiny little town in 1859 because of a little bit of gold found on Pikes Peak is now a city of over 500,000 people with thousands and thousands of people moving here every single year.
Now, while Denver might be known as the Mile High City, they don't hold a candle to Colorado Springs.
Elevation is a real deal.
Real deal.
So when you come to Colorado Springs, if you're just coming to visit or maybe you're thinking about a move here, just be prepared for that. If you're coming from sea level, downtown Colorado Springs, 6,000 feet. If you get up in the Black Forest area, 7,400 feet. Man, if you're up in Woodland Park, you're talking like 8,400 feet plus if you're up on Pikes Peak. So just be prepared for that. You might have a little bit of trouble breathing. But what I tell people is your body's gonna adjust. Unless you've got some other respiratory issues, your body's gonna adjust to it. It might just take a little while. And even in most stores now, they sell that canned oxygen stuff. So you can just grab some of those and you're good to go. But just like I said, be prepared for that. It is a legit thing and it's probably gonna affect you a little bit.
And the elevation affects a couple other things too, because not only is it dry here, but when you add the elevation to it as well, I noticed that a lot of people move out here and they feel like their skin is really dry. They get bloody noses a lot. My wife gets bloody noses all the time. It's kind of hilarious. And then it affects the weather. It affects kind of just the overall experience. So you're definitely gonna wanna hydrate a lot more out here. You're for sure gonna be using some lotion. You're for sure gonna be using some chapstick. And then it's gonna affect the overall weather patterns.
So we're gonna give you 23 things that you really do need to know about Colorado Springs. But you know what? There's a 24th, and that's our relocation guide. We put together a relocation guide for people that aren't from Colorado Springs, tons of insider information from the locals, including myself and the rest of the guys on the team. Link down below, definitely make sure you download that relo guide. All right, so Colorado Springs sits on the Front Range of Colorado. Now you may have done a little bit of research and you've heard about the Front Range, but what is the Front Range exactly? So I'm gonna show it to you on a map here. So when we say the Front Range of Colorado, it's just where the plains turn to the mountains essentially. So it's the first little bit of uplift that you get and it essentially parallels I-25. So if you look up at the north side, this is the Wyoming border up here. And the major towns along the Front Range in Colorado are Fort Collins up north here. And then you can see Boulder. Most people have at least heard of Boulder or Colorado University. So there's Boulder Boulder is like right at the foothills. Just south of Boulder, you have Denver. And you know what? You can see on the map here, the greater Denver metro area, it's not really right up against the foothills at all. It's actually pretty far away from the mountains. Catches a lot of people off guard whenever they fly into Denver. They're thinking they're gonna see the mountains right where the airplane's landing. Not the case at all. But Denver, of course, the major city along the Front Range. And then you go south about 60 miles, you get down to where we are at right here, Colorado Springs. Now the Front Range does kind of continue, kind of goes to the west a little bit. This is the Sangre de Cristo mountain range and then on down to the Spanish Peaks and then ultimately the New Mexico borders right down here. So this general line right here is the Front Range of Colorado. Those are the major cities along the Front Range. Again, Colorado Springs, just a little bit south of center of Colorado. And you can see the major intersection of I-25 and Highway 24 right here in Colorado Springs. Highway 24 takes you right up into the mountains. So you can see these major cities sit right on the edge of the mountains, and that's what we mean when we say the Colorado Front Range.
One thing that's gonna change for you when you move to Colorado Springs is that you're gonna be outside a lot. Colorado Springs is consistently ranked one of the healthiest and most active cities in the United States, and for good reason. Because Colorado Springs, even though it's at 6,035 feet on average, it can definitely get higher as you go north. Once you adjust to it and you get familiar with your surroundings, it's like impossible to just not get outside. Where I moved from, gosh, it was like so hard to go outside ever because it was way too freaking hot, way too many mosquitoes, way too windy. The weather was never cooperating. But here, we've got like 300 days of sunshine a year. So it just encourages you to want to be outside and take part in the activities that we've got. So what does being outdoorsy actually look like here? Everything, anything that you can imagine. We've got trail running, hiking, and mountain biking. And we're, like I said, in Palmer Park. This is one of the meccas within town. This is within 10, 15 minutes of just about anywhere in town that you can get to and take part in those activities. So trail running, you've got all kinds of open spaces. You've got trails, you've got green spaces, you've got spaces in between neighborhoods that let you get out and run. You know, what's funny is like, I never wanted to get into running in most of the neighborhoods that I lived in because I just don't like running on concrete through neighborhoods, looking at the same houses every day. But when you're here, you get to get out on the trails and just get a little bit of varied experience, and you get to see different things, and it always looks different. It always looks better. Every time you go out, it's unstoppable. But maybe you're not into running. Maybe you're just more into hiking. And there is everything for beginners that just want to walk. Maybe you're older, maybe you've got little kids. There's easy hiking everywhere, but there's also very difficult stuff. If you get into like North Cheyenne Canyon, you can do like Mount Muskoka, that's pretty steep, that's a little bit more difficult, 3, 4, 5, 6 miles. So you've got all kinds of varied stuff like that. And then mountain biking, I have to talk about a couple things in particular. There are very easy mountain biking trails. There's little BMX areas all over Colorado Springs that you can learn some of those sport and trick type stuff. And then again, here in Palmer Park, these are also all mountain biking trails that go all over. There's 25 miles here, right? So this is where I learned a little bit more of the technical skills of mountain biking. And then on the other side of Colorado Springs, they're actually turning in, there's this big mining scar in the side of the mountain. And that's being turned into a legitimate mountain bike park, which is gonna be so cool. They've been talking about it for years, and they're finally really deep into the project. They're starting to plant the trees and get the vegetation right so that they could turn it into its own park. That will be accessible minutes away from where you're living.
Colorado Springs is known for its million-dollar views, the panoramic vistas, but not every street corner in Colorado Springs is gonna offer you that unobstructed Pikes Peak view. In fact, a vast majority of homes in Colorado Springs are not gonna offer that to you. Now, there are certainly those areas up above Garden of the Gods, or a lot of them on the west side of town up on the mesa, where you just have these unobstructed views of Pikes Peak. Or sometimes even out east of Colorado Springs a little bit, you get these huge panoramic views of the whole Front Range, from Cheyenne Mountain, Pikes Peak, Blodgett Peak, Eagle Peak, the whole Front Range. But like I said, for most of us that live in Colorado Springs, you may not have that view out your back door. You're gonna have to maybe go down the street, maybe go to a park, or just take a drive to the grocery store to see that beautiful view. But that doesn't mean that those houses aren't desirable. Again, it's the vast majority of properties. So if you really want that Pikes Peak view and you have to have it right outside of your dining room window, you're gonna have a lot less options than if you're like, hey, you know what? I'm in Colorado Springs. When I go to the park, I see Pikes Peak. When I drive to work, I get to see Pikes Peak. Like I said, you're just gonna have a lot more options if you kind of have that mindset with it. So I feel like that's just a myth that a lot of people talk about when they're thinking of Colorado Springs, thinking about moving here, is they think no matter where I'm at, I'm gonna have this amazing mountain view. And it's just not the case. Like I said, vast majority of homes don't have those unobstructed Pikes Peak views, but you can certainly get them if you're willing to pay the right price. Now, if you're researching Colorado Springs, you've got to do me a favor. Do not skip the outlying areas. So as you're doing a little bit of research about Colorado Springs, you got to kind of think, okay, Colorado Springs, that's the city, but then when you do your research, what all is being included in that? And I will admit, people that live here, I've been here for almost 20 years now, sometimes we get a little bit of a bad habit of saying Colorado Springs, and that encompasses everything from the Eastern Plains to the foothills and really kind of all of the Pikes Peak area, but that's not really accurate. So when you do some research, you don't want to miss out on those areas that aren't truly Colorado Springs. So these are kind of some areas that I want to highlight that are in the Pikes Peak area, we'll call it, the Pikes Peak region. So you definitely have Colorado Springs. We talked a ton about that, but let's go up north. And if we take a look at the map, Colorado Springs proper, all of this area right here. And again, I know we've talked a lot about this, but what I want to do is I want to scroll up a little bit to northern El Paso County. So northern El Paso County, right on the far northern boundary of it, all the way up to what's called County Line Road that separates El Paso County from Douglas County, there's a little town, it's called Monument. And I'm really bad about lumping this in with Colorado Springs, and we get comments all the time about, hey, that's not really Colorado Springs, it's actually Monument. Yes, I understand that. But again, when you're doing your research, as everything kind of starts to just blend together a little bit, you've got to check out these specific outlying areas. And the first one is Monument. So Monument is a great town. We've done a specific area tour video on Monument, so definitely check that out to get a lot of great information about Monument proper. Monument is definitely an area that you've got to check out if you're kind of interested in this Pikes Peak region. The next one I want to talk about is a little bit farther out to the east. So this right here is what's known as the Black Forest. Now you can see on the map where you have the green areas, this is where it's heavily treed. Now the Black Forest extends quite a bit up to the north and to the east up towards a little town called Elbert. But in El Paso County, kind of closer into Colorado Springs, this is the main Black Forest area. There's larger properties, it feels very rural, but you're still really, really close into Colorado Springs. So if that's something that you might find appealing, definitely do some research on the Black Forest area. We've done an area tour of this one as well, so definitely check that out to get kind of a deep dive into the Black Forest area. All right, so the next outlying area around Colorado Springs is Falcon. So if you want to be a little bit removed from Colorado Springs, you still are. It hasn't totally grown together yet. It's getting kind of close, but there's still some open space between the Springs and Falcon. So this is a nice area if you want a little bit of separation from town. And there's also a golf course community. There's multiple golf course communities out there. So you have a lot of housing options as well. So that's a great outlying area to check out, again, if you want to be just a little bit outside of the city. All right, there's a couple more outlying areas I want to talk about. And the next one is Fountain. So Fountain is on the far south side of Colorado Springs. So here's kind of the southern boundary of what's Colorado Springs proper. You can see Fountain down here right along I-25. Fountain is really popular for people that are either stationed or working at Fort Carson, the big army post that's on the south side of Colorado Springs, all of this area right here. So Fountain is a great choice, again, if you want to be close to Fort Carson. You also are going to get home prices are quite a bit lower in Fountain than what they are in other parts of Colorado Springs. There's not quite as much. It feels like maybe you're a little bit more removed from the mountains when you're in Fountain, but honestly, like drive time wise, you're not that far. Do a lot of really, really cool recreation stuff. And once again, we've done area tours on all of these. So Fountain, if you're interested in that, check it out. Like I said, there's a big draw, especially if you're military folks and you're going to be at Fort Carson, even Schriever Space Force Base or Peterson Space Force Base. Fountain is a great location because you're getting a good bang for your buck. On the housing side, there's a lot of commercial stuff that's down there now. So all of your shopping and everything is right down there. And you're going to have a lot shorter commute time than you would if you're in another place in Colorado Springs. All right, and then the last outlying area that you've got to make sure you don't skip is Woodland Park. So Woodland Park is just west of Colorado Springs. So again, here's downtown Colorado Springs. You go right up Highway 24. This is up the Ute Pass, up to Woodland Park. Now, Woodland Park, you're in the mountains. Like you are in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. So you're over 9,000 feet, and it just feels like you're in a cool little mountain town. Woodland Park, like everything along the Colorado Front Range, has grown a lot over the last few years. So now there's a little bit more commercial development. There's some more housing options. And there's everything from, 1970s built small little city lot all the way to beautiful custom homes on 100 acres outside of Woodland Park. But the coolest thing about Woodland Park, and I think it's what a lot of people kind of forget about till you get up there, is the view of Pikes Peak is amazing. It's a different view than what you have when you're in Colorado Springs. So from Woodland Park, you're kind of looking I say down because you're looking south towards Pikes Peak. So you're kind of looking at that north and a little bit of the west side of Pikes Peak versus when you're in Colorado Springs, you're obviously looking at that eastern face of Pikes Peak. So the views of Pikes Peak are amazing. You feel like you are just truly in the Colorado mountains because you are. And what's also super cool about it is this drive from Woodland Park down the pass to Colorado Springs is maybe 15, 20 minutes, depending on where you're going in Colorado Springs. It could be a little bit farther if you're all the way on the east side. But overall, it's a pretty short commute time. You have all the amenities you would want right outside your back door. You don't have to come to Colorado Springs if you don't want to. But like I said, it's a cool area that I feel like a lot of people don't think enough about when they're moving to Colorado Springs because they think, oh, that's way up in the mountains. It's going to be way too far away. Yes, if you don't like to drive, or if you don't like to drive on roads whenever they're a little slippery out, maybe not the best place to be, but it's not that far away outside of Colorado Springs, and you just get that true Colorado living feel whenever you're up in Woodland Park.
Okay, so Colorado Springs has grown and changed a lot over the last 7 to 10 years. A lot of people used to say like, oh, there's no good food down in Colorado Springs. And that's because Denver is one of the best food cities in America. But Colorado Springs is on the up and up. It has changed a lot. But what you have to understand about Colorado Springs is that where are you going to find the good food? The reality is that in my experience, is that you're really not finding the good local eateries up north. It seems to me like up north, as you start getting like up around the Air Force Academy, you start just having a lot more chain restaurants, like small chains, big chains, and it's just like a very commercialized area. And it seems actually to be the same with shops. When you come downtown and you're in old Colorado City or up and down Tejon, that seems to be where most of like the new local eateries are gonna be at. We're standing in front of Dos Dos. They own a couple places, Sushi Row. They also own Dos Dos, which is another burrito place right up the street. But then you've got other restaurants that are just absolute classics like Suga's, 4 by Brother Luck, which is like super bougie. You can go over into old Colorado City. You've got Jake and Telly's. You've got great coffee shops over there. You've got Mossam, which by the way, the chef at Mossam, it's an Indian restaurant. He was a two-time Michelin star chef, which is incredible. It's like a sit-down Indian place. Absolutely out of control. So people that tell you that Colorado Springs doesn't really have good food, they just don't know where to look. We know where to look. I've got a whole guide to all the best foods in Colorado Springs, whether you're looking for brunch or you're looking for just drinks or you're looking for tap rooms or you're looking for dinners, whatever it is. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely let me know. And that brings us to our next point, breweries. Now, thinking about breweries in Colorado Springs, it's basically synonymous. Everybody knows that in Colorado Springs, we've got tons of breweries. There's so many, and so many that are just phenomenal. In fact, if you actually just want to see a whole video on it, we did a whole video of the best breweries of Colorado Springs. It was a super fun video to check out, but we're standing in front of Cerberus. They're definitely one of the best breweries in Colorado Springs. You've got Phantom Brewing and Bristol Brewing, Black Forest Brewing, Pikes Peak, Trinity, Red Leg. And there's that kind of a whole culture around it. And each brewery, what's cool is like they've got their own little thing that makes them unique and makes them worth visiting and worth exploring. In fact, that's one of the biggest things that when tourists do come into the town, that's like, what breweries are we hitting up? And they're kind of like comparing and contrasting all their favorite things and what are their best drinks that they can get. So if that is something that is on your list and something that brings you joy, Colorado Springs is absolutely the place for you.
All right, so forget about the mountains for a second. The real growth story in Colorado Springs is headed in totally different directions. Let's just say you might need a different map. You might need a Kansas map here in the next couple years. So we talked a little bit about the outlying areas around Colorado Springs, but the main direction of growth is to the east. And it really just makes sense from a geographic standpoint. On the west, you've got the mountains in Pikes Peak. On the north side of El Paso County, right in Douglas County, you have a huge open space area. You have Spruce Mountain open space on the west side of I-25, and on the east side of I-25, you have the Greenland open space. And while the city is growing a little bit to the south side of town, towards Fountain, down past Fort Carson, ultimately down towards Pueblo eventually, that's not as much of a path of growth, and there's a myriad of reasons for that, but nonetheless, the main growth is to the east. So right now, Colorado Springs is almost grown together with Falcon. Right now, we're in Banning Lewis Ranch, which is the largest master planned community in Colorado Springs, and it sits on what you might imagine, the former Banning Lewis Cattle Ranch. And the area out to the east is all just open ranch land, and it's almost all filled in. So it stretches all the way to Woodman Road to the north, all the way out to Falcon, and then to the south past Highway 24. And the plan is for all of this ranch land to, I guess, unfortunately, I will say, get filled in with houses as the community of Banning Lewis Ranch continues to expand. And again, that's just where the direction of Colorado Springs is going. So, pros and cons of that, you definitely get some amazing mountain views when you're on the east side of Colorado Springs. You get these big panoramic views. You don't get the real up close view, obviously, but you get these awesome panoramic front range views. You get new construction housing, which a lot of people really like. And honestly, as the commercial infill has started to take place, all of your shopping and groceries, restaurants, and all that stuff is also moving east with the housing development. So And I'm very, very confident in that eastward growth, even east of Falcon, because there's already multiple communities planned that are going through the development stage and the approval process right now. And one of those is actually, I think it's 3,500 to 5,000 houses, if I remember right from the county plan. So we're talking about thousands and thousands of homes all the way up to Falcon, between Colorado Springs, and now we're talking even east of Falcon. We truly are reaching towards the Kansas line.
So you figured out that you're moving to Colorado Springs, and the number one question that's going to come up in your brain is, what the heck is there to do? So we're going to talk about, from south to north, the best things to do here, because there's a lot. There's family activities. If you're single, there's fun activities. If you're an outdoor person, if you're an indoor person, if you're social, if you're not that social, there's a lot of options. And we're going to start with probably one of the most famous things in Colorado Springs, which is the zoo. And as you can see behind me, the giraffes can be fed. You can feed these freaking giraffes. This is amazing. This is the only mountain zoo in all of North America, which is really freaking cool. And it's actually ranked, I believe this year it was ranked the #2 zoo in the entire country. It's so awesome. It's right up above the Broadmoor. You drive up a bunch of windy roads to get there. It's so beautiful. There's animals walking around. It's very interactive. In fact, a friend recently told me he went to the Steve Irwin Zoo in Australia, and he said that this was comparable to the Steve Irwin Zoo. So, g'day, mate. Make sure you get out there and enjoy your time at the zoo. Now, we cannot talk about Colorado Springs without talking about sports. Now, we don't have any professional sports. If you want those are all up in Denver. But down here, our main focus is the semi-professional soccer team, the Colorado Switchbacks. They are so much fun. Their games are an absolute blast because, number one, the tickets are cheap. So there's really no reason to not go. We're talking like you can get good tickets for $15. And when I say good tickets, I mean, I really would never pay more than like 25 or 30 bucks because there's really not any bad seats in the stadium. The stadium is very, very small. It's not super tall. And what's cool is it's got this, when you're looking west, it's backdropped by Pikes Peak. It is so freaking cool looking. And then the show is always a really good show. Like the game is really fun. It's really engaging. The music is loud. There's fireworks after every game. Every time they score a goal, they've got the lights flashing. There's just so much cool stuff happening. And because the crowd is so small, there's a lot of interaction. So if you bring your kids to the game, there's basically a 90% chance that they're going to get to interact with the mascot, which kids love. And you're probably going to see them win. As you can see here, they were the 2024 USL National Champions. That was their first year being champions. They're not even that old of a team. That was really, really cool, super exciting. And the championship game was even hosted here. So a lot of pride in the Switchbacks, super fun games, 10 out of 10 recommend. All right, now I'm gonna draw your attention here to the map because this little section right off the south side of Northgate Boulevard is just chock full of fun activities. You've got the trampoline park, Air 360. You've got Top Golf. You've got the Ford Amphitheater here, which I'll talk about in just a sec. You've also got go-karting. You've got Shields that's right in that vicinity. You've got Bass Pro Shops. This whole area, while you don't have any cell phone service for some unbeknownst reason, there is so much to do here. So this is a place where a lot of families will take their families and go out and just have a fun Friday night. They've got the go-kart tracks that go, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. It is super fun. There's a lot of activity here. We even have our own indoor skydiving tunnel that is less than 5 years old, and that place is phenomenal as well. It's called iFly. And then our newest addition, the biggest addition, also kind of controversial, addition to Colorado Springs is the Ford Amphitheater. RIP Sunset Amphitheater name, which we liked a lot better. Or just Colorado Springs Premier Amphitheater. We would have liked that a lot better. But here we are. We're stuck with Ford Amphitheater. This is kind of our response to Denver's Red Rocks Amphitheater. And I'm going to be honest, nothing can really compete with Red Rocks. That place is magical. But the Ford Amphitheater is right there next to the Academy. And they just opened this past year. This year we've got shows like Leon Bridges, The Black Keys, Louis C.K. It's a really cool spot. And I would say what's super unique about the Ford Amphitheater is that most amphitheaters you go to and it's just stadium seating all the way up. However, at the Ford Amphitheater, you can actually get these really nice fire pits that you can, and your friends and your family can all sit around. It's kind of a more private experience. Now they do have like the lawn seating at the very top. They do have the normal stadium seating, but for a couple extra bucks, you can get yourselves into one of those. I'm gonna call it a booth, even though it's more of like an outdoor amphitheater booth, but you've got the fire pit in the middle. You've got space for your food. It's just you and your friends. watching an incredible show. It is so cool. And the backdrop is the Air Force Academy and the whole Front Range. It is absolutely amazing.
Has it been a little while since you've been to downtown Colorado Springs? Have you kind of heard the stories about, oh, it's just all dilapidated and yucky and there's nothing to do? I'll tell you what, 5 short years ago, that was maybe exactly the case, but not anymore. Colorado Springs has made a huge push to revitalize the downtown area. And it's not just the kind of the heart of downtown on Tejon and Cascade, it's the south side of downtown. So right behind me, this is a new Widener Field, the stadium for the Switchbacks, our local soccer club. Right across the way, you've got the brand new, about 2 years ago now, you've got the Olympic Museum and Paralympic Museum. And all of these vacant lots now used to be kind of just rundown industrial spaces that have been bulldozed, and now we're seeing new stuff get built. Behind Widener Field, there's a huge new luxury apartment complex that, again, used to just be dilapidated housing that was really, really run down. You've got over on Pikes Peak, just to the east of us, there's a really, really sweet luxury apartment complex. The second level has got this huge pool deck on it where you can lay out all year long. So just the amount of just housing and commercial stuff that's been done downtown has drastically changed the landscape. And I know we've talked a little bit about kind of food and culture. And again, that's just all part of this revitalization that's really drawing people to downtown Colorado Springs. So again, luxury apartment living, tons of food and culture, sporting events, you've got cultural activities to go do, I mean, literally on a daily basis. And this other building back behind me, it looks kind of rough right now. I know they're getting ready to do some more remodeling, but that's Colorado Springs Sport and Social, pickleball courts, just a cool place to hang out and have a good time. That's what Colorado Springs downtown is turning into. So if it's been a little while since you've been down here, like I said, maybe you looked into it maybe 4 or 5 years ago, just know that it is drastically different and that development is only continuing. And it's not just continuing with kind of the run of the mill stuff, it's super cool new event centers, cultural stuff to do, and the food scene, like we said, is blowing up.
Well, you can't talk about Colorado Springs history and culture without mentioning the military, but it's not what you think, because here in Colorado Springs, we have 5. You heard me right. 5 military installations. And it does have an effect on the culture, but it's not a town that feels overwhelmed with military.
Yeah. It's not this all-consuming, like that's all the culture. So Kyle and I are both veterans, so we spent time in cities where that was the culture. That's all it was, you know, be it Columbus, Georgia, Fayetteville, North Carolina, Pensacola. So some of these cities that we've lived in, like the military is the culture, but Colorado Springs, there's enough other stuff happening here where it's not all about the military. You've got the outdoor culture.
Yeah, I think the outdoor culture is actually really what separates it, because so in some of these communities where they're smaller and they are totally focused on the military, we're like, if the military left, that community is falling apart, the economy is falling apart. I noticed that in my career in the military, that like the military, you just all kind of stuck together, and like your identity, like you're at work together, and then your only friends were those people. But here, the outdoor culture really shapes it, because it's like, well, when I'm not at work, you know, when I'm not at post, I'm mountain biking and we're skiing, and this person's whitewater rafting, and it's just like it. I think it helps actually people just like create another social identity outside of just the military. But something major here though is, so first off, the 5 military bases. You've got Peterson, which is a Space Force base. It's actually kind of like Space Command. So that's a pretty huge one. You've got a lot of high level colonels, generals that come here. Schriever is also a Space Force base. That's out in the southeast. You got Fort Carson, which is an enormous military base. That's an Army base, home of the 1st Infantry. You got the Air Force Academy, which also, yes, it's a university, but of course it also has active duty people that are stationed there for, you know, teaching and support and all that stuff. And then you also have Cheyenne Mountain, which is NORAD. Thank God, because that's the only way that we know where Santa is. So you've got all these, but don't forget, Colorado Springs is 500,000 people, and El Paso County is like 750,000 people. And so while there's 5 military installations and that's a lot of people, it's not like the preponderance of people here are military.
Right, yeah. Huge impact on jobs.
Yes.
As I think that's probably the biggest pro of the military influence in Colorado Springs. It's not just those active duty jobs, but it's the government civil servants that support the military, and then also contractor jobs. Cybersecurity is a big one that's here in Colorado Springs now as kind of a national hub a little bit. So all those big contractors, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, all the big ones, and then a ton of small contractors too, they all have offices here in Colorado Springs, and it's a huge part of the local workforce, and they're high-paying jobs too, which I think is a big thing for the Colorado Springs economy. So it's not just the active duty military, but it's that influence across the job market that really helps Colorado Springs.
Well, and what I've noticed is that we're talking about kind of like a lot of these like higher level, 06s and 07s, like your general level that come here. They kind of come here on these like sunset tours. And, they choose it because Colorado Springs is such a great place. And really because there's a lot of military bases that just are not great for the family.
Right.
But Colorado Springs is so great for the family because like it's a lot easier for your spouse to find a job. The healthcare here is phenomenal. So a lot of people, in the military, you've got the EFMP program.
Yep.
And so like a lot of people get stationed here because of that. So a lot of people, they make their rotation here and they're like, man, I'm never leaving. In fact, that's what happened to us. My wife
happened to me.
Yep. My wife PCS'd up here in 21. And then I came up here shortly after her. And she got an assignment to leave Colorado Springs. And we were like, nope.
Yeah.
Done that before, where we chose, mission over location or whatever. And so, we ended up staying here. But I would say the last big piece, though, is that a lot of people then have this concern about like, oh, man, it's just going to feel like I'm walking around in like High and Tight Central, right? Like that it's going to be so overwhelmed with just military things and military paraphernalia and whatever. And that's really not the case at all.
It's not, unless you're in like certain parts of town, like if you're right outside the gate of Fort Carson. Of course, right? Yeah, like there's going to be military surplus exchange places and like barber shops that are really good at cutting high and tights, So
I go there often.
Obviously. In certain parts of town, you'll still see that influence a little bit heavier, but man, it's definitely not all over the place.
No, and like when you go downtown, like it doesn't feel like in Pensacola, it was like Marines and sailors. That's like all you could see. But don't forget, like we've got UCCS here. It is a college town. There's a lot of young people here. And so young people, young professionals as well. And so what I would say is like when you go downtown, I don't ever feel like I'm overwhelmed being around like young military people. It feels like kind of a mix. And again, everybody just has so much more to them here because there's so much more to do that it just doesn't feel like, well, our whole identity is wrapped up in the military thing. And ultimately, it does kind of help balance out and give us that purple culture that we've been talking about.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think really at the end of the day, you get all of the good that comes with the military influence, but you don't have to deal with a lot of the cons you have to in some other cities.
All right, let's face it. The Westside gets all the glory, but is that really the only place in Colorado Springs that truly feels like Colorado? I'm gonna give you a handful of examples of why that is definitely not the case. Number one, Palmer Park. We are standing in the middle of Palmer Park right now, and you can see behind me the true west side of Colorado Springs. But when you're in Palmer Park, you just feel like you're in the middle of the mountains in Colorado. And I'm gonna give you 3 more examples of places you gotta check out where you're gonna feel like Colorado, even though you're not on the west side of Colorado Springs. The second one is Fox Run Regional Park. It's on the north end of town, deep in the pine trees. When you're in there, like you would not even think that you're 5 minutes away from a King Soopers grocery store and about 14 gas stations. You feel like Colorado. Another one to definitely check out is Homestead Regional Park. This park is way out east. If you were to drive from Garden of the Gods on the west side of Colorado Springs to Homestead Park, it would be about a 45-minute drive. But when you're there, you're mixed in with these canyons and bluffs, pine trees, scrub oak. Again, you feel like true Colorado, what we all picture. And the last one you definitely got to check out is just the big area of Black Forest. There's multiple parks in Black Forest. There's a ton of recreation. And again, higher elevation, pine trees, you just feel like you're in Colorado. So don't think that you have to be on the west side of Colorado Springs to feel like Colorado.
Have you been overpaying for your taxes? This is the moment that you realize. All right. So if you're coming from a state with really high property taxes, you might be surprised that Colorado's actually ranked super low. And this is the moment where you're going to find out how much you've been overpaying. So I'll give you an example. My parents live in Illinois and their house is worth about $200,000. They pay $1,000 a year in taxes on a $200,000 house. It's just a normal house. It's not a big acreage, nothing like that. My house out here in Colorado Springs is about $650,000. Totally different house, totally different location, obviously. And I pay $2,200 a year in taxes. That is dramatically different. So that is something that you will want to take into consideration when you move out here, but it's not that clean cut across the board. So I want to kind of give you a little bit of perspective of what to expect for your taxes. So number one, we are the state with the third lowest taxes in the union, baby. That's according to Wallet Hub in 2024. That's pretty awesome. So we're about 0.48% for our taxes, where the national average is 1.1, which means that you've got some like New Jersey and Illinois that I just mentioned that are all the way up in the twos. So if you're moving from Texas or California, you're really going to feel that difference when you move here, and that is going to be a major bonus for your pockets. Now, brain fart. Okay. But it's not as clear cut as just like, oh, if I move to Colorado Springs, I'm just going to have super low taxes. You can expect on average for about a $500,000 house that it'll be $2,400. Well, Kyle, you just told me that you have a $650,000 house and it's $2,200. How's that math work? Well, because across the city, you're going to have differing tax brackets and that's not the word I meant to use. Tax what? Rates. Thank you. Well, across the city, you're going to have different tax rates. And it's kind of strange, but actually on the west side, in the southwest, specifically kind of like old Colorado City, closer to Manitou, like that whole area, you actually have some of the lowest tax.
Purple. That's how I would describe the culture of Colorado Springs. Now, when we say a color like purple, and we're talking about culture, obviously we're talking about a political culture to a large degree. And I want to talk about this just as we talk about things to know about Colorado Springs. A lot of people probably still have in their mind that Colorado Springs is this super conservative mecca like it was decades ago. But the culture has shifted a lot, and the pendulum hasn't swung way the other way, where it's, again, to use political colors, it's not a blue area, but it's not a red area either. It really is this purple culture, and it's a lot of just the conservative basis that's been in Colorado Springs for years, but then an influx of new people as well coming to the area with different ideas and just different culture. So we've kind of started to see this melding together, which, truth be told, from my perspective, as again, someone that's lived here for 20 years and was here when it was a very, very red culture, if you will, it's actually, I think, been a pretty good thing, for the city of Colorado Springs, and we'll leave out of it whatever the rest of Colorado is doing, but for Colorado Springs proper, it's actually, I think, been a pretty good thing. We've seen a lot of revitalization downtown because of this influx of people that want to live in downtown areas, kind of this urbanite type of feel, and it's brought in a lot of good, a new restaurant scene that we didn't have for years and years, and it's brought in a lot of, again, just culture to Colorado Springs that we didn't have. So when you think about Colorado Springs, don't think of Colorado Springs 20 years ago, or if you talk to somebody that lived here decades ago, their view on Colorado Springs is probably going to be a lot different than what true, accurate picture is today in Colorado Springs. We're definitely more of a purple culture now.
If you think city parks are boring, it's just because you haven't seen the amount of things that we've got for free in Colorado Springs. One of my favorite things about Colorado Springs is it really doesn't matter where you live. You're pretty much always within 10 to 12 minutes of an open space. The city here manages over 9,000 acres of open spaces. That's crazy. And we've got everything from ones that are 1,500 acres all the way down to 10 acres. And they're all free and accessible to the public. I'm standing here in Palmer Park, which is 730 acres, right dead center in the middle of town. This is where, when I decided that I was going to learn how to mountain bike, this is where I came to do it. There are endless trails. There's 25 miles of running and biking and walking trails up here. There's also open spaces to run with your dog off leash. Palmer Park is right in the center of the city. There's housing developments all around it. It is such an accessible and an incredible place. Okay, so we're standing up here on kind of the western vista on Palmer Park, and kind of from south to north, or my right to left, you've got North Cheyenne Canyon. That is such a beautiful place. There's really beautiful trails out there. There's rivers, there's trails, there's waterfalls, there's mountains to hike, and there's like nobody that goes back there. It's kind of a hidden secret, because if you go past that, that's where you get to Cheyenne Mountain State Park, which you do need a state park pass to get into there. But then you also have Red Rocks Open Space. Red Rocks Open Space is like 1,500 acres, which is really incredible. And it's kind of like Garden of the Gods, but like mini. So over the summer, Garden of the Gods, it's worth mentioning, obviously, is over 1,500 acres, and it has 4 million visitors annually. People literally come here just to go to Garden of the Gods. And so what I really like about the Red Rocks open space is that when you live here, that really tends to be the place that locals go a little bit more often, because you still get views of Pikes Peak. You still can see the incline from there. You can still see all of those beautiful rock formations, but man, it's way less crowded. Also in the Red Rocks open space, you can also do some sandstone climbing. It's really kind of slab friction climbing, which is not my favorite, but it's a nice little place to get really close to the town, to where you live, to get out on the rocks and get some experience. There's also off leash, you can run around with your dog. You can just do some trail running. You can do some biking right at the entrance of the Red Rocks open space. There's also a nice little mountain biking park that you can practice some of your sick tricks on that I don't do because I'm not good enough to do that kind of stuff. Now, from pretty much anywhere in the city, when you're looking at Pikes Peak, right underneath it, kind of at the 5 o'clock position, you just see this stark straight line just shooting up the side of the mountain. Now, it's not really an open space, but it is a place that you can go for free and experience some outdoor activity. That is the incline. The fabled, diabolical, evil, awful, so type 2 fun, it's not even funny incline. 2,768 steps straight up the side of the mountain. And that's right in Manitou Springs. So you'll park down in Manitou Springs, take a shuttle up there and rock up that thing. And that is extremely popular. Tons of people do it weekly. There's people that do it multiple times a day. The record is somehow 17 minutes and 13 seconds, which is crazy. That was set in 2023. Most people, it takes them about an hour, but it's a really, really cool spot right underneath of Pikes Peak. And when you get to the top, I'm telling you, the views of the whole city are just really incredible, especially because right when you're up there looking down, it's just all these like bluffs, and it's the mountains and the foothills just all kind of forming into one, and you get to see Colorado Springs and Manitou Springs in all its glory. Now, as we go just to the north of Garden of the Gods, you also have Ute Valley Park. Now, I'm pretty partial to Ute Valley Park because I think it was just the first park that I went to. And the thing is when you move to Colorado Springs, you kind of just realize that like everybody has like their spot, like their sacred little spot that if they can get out on lunch and they can just go be outside and sit and breathe and relax and recharge, that they'll sneak off to. For me, it's Ute Valley Park. And then a couple other noteworthy ones. You've also got Blodgett open space, which goes up to the peak, which is super incredible. You also have Stratton Meadow Hills. You also have just even on the east side of town, there's lots of little parks and trail systems that run through. The city has done an incredible job. Like I said, there's 9,000 acres of open space in Colorado Springs that is free and open to the public. And like I said earlier, it's why you're just gonna find yourself spending time outdoors because the weather is great and the space is accessible. And it's like, if you're moving to Colorado Springs, why would you not?
So are you planning on raising a family in Colorado Springs? Well, this next topic might be the reason you decide to do just exactly that. The Colorado Springs area has some amazing options for education in schools. The first thing, as with most places, is public education. Colorado Springs has 3 of the highest rated school districts in the entire state of Colorado. Those are D12, D20, and D38. So those school districts are, I'm going to show you on this map right here. Now, this map that you're seeing right now with this K-12 public school districts, this is actually in our relocation guide. So if you're looking for more information about Colorado Springs, not just education, but everything about the Springs, definitely make sure you download this relocation guide. It's got a ton of valuable information that tells you a lot about Colorado Springs. So D12 is this little school district down here by the Broadmoor. And then you have D20, which is this large blue district right up here. This is kind of on the north side of Colorado Springs. And then D38 is this red box up here. So this is in that monument area, and it goes all the way up to County Line Road. So this is District 38, District 20, and District 12. So again, you have some great school districts here in Colorado Springs. Now, I always tell everybody, do your own due diligence, make sure you do your homework, make sure that the school district and the school is going to be a good fit for you and your family. But again, these are 3 highly rated school districts. And then also throughout Colorado Springs, these other school districts, again, check them out. We always like to take a look at niche.com, great resource for school information.
But you'll see that the school districts across Colorado Springs are pretty solid overall. So in addition to just having good school districts here in the Colorado Springs area, Colorado as a state has another program, I guess is the best way to put it, and it's called school choice. So you don't have to have your kiddo go to the school or into the district where you live. You can choose to opt into another school district even if your address isn't inside that district. Now, as you can imagine, there's restrictions to that, and it really just kind of comes down to, people that are in district are going to get first option, and then maybe people that work in the district, they're going to get second. So there are limitations. Otherwise, maybe everybody would want to go to one school district, and there's not enough room in those schools. So there are limitations to it, but school choice is an amazing thing that Colorado has that gives you the ability to have your kiddo go to a school, and maybe it's not even just another district. Maybe it's just a specific school within your district that you really want your kid to go to for whatever reason it might be. And again, there are some restrictions. There's not going to be bus service. You're going to have to drive your kiddo there, stuff like that. But if school choice sounds like something that's like, man, that's kind of intriguing, I never heard about that before, definitely check out the video that we did specifically on school choice. It goes down in the weeds, tells you all the information you need to know, what time you need to have, when you need to apply, and all that stuff. So check out this video on school choice if that's of interest to you as well.
Before you buy anything in Colorado, you have to know this about hail and home and car coverage, because Colorado Springs is number 7 in the country for hail damage claims. That's not good. We have some pretty wild hailstorms that come through the summer. Pretty much July, it is like every couple days, like you have a chance of hail coming through. And it went pretty viral a couple years ago. And we're talking baseball-sized hail that was coming down over at Red Rocks Open Space, which we were just talking about how nice of a place that was to go. And people got pelted by baseballs falling from the sky. So my insurance, when I moved up here on my truck, literally doubled. That's crazy. It literally doubled the premium. So it's kind of like, cool, I saved on taxes. And then, dang it, I'm paying more for my insurance. And my home insurance, I don't think that the home insurance got wildly outrageous. It's not like California, where California, like a lot of places, were just dropping coverage. In fact, we just got a comment on another YouTube video, on our Woodland Park video. Go check that one out if you're interested in Woodland Park. That was asking about the homeowners insurance availability. Because yes, there is one other problem here that we have, which is the potential for wildfires in heavily wooded areas. Now, that doesn't really affect a lot of Colorado Springs. Like if you're east of the I-25 north-south highway, it's really not a thing that is like a major concern unless you're up in the Black Forest area. But over on the west side, a lot of us have to have fire coverage as well. And so there's a lot of efforts that go on to kind of mitigate fire risk. There was a couple big fires, the Waldo Canyon fire, most notably, that happened within the last couple decades that really changed the policies in the way that we interact with our insurance. So hail and fire, they're definitely big problems out here that will affect your insurance, and it will cost. So your premiums, you can just expect that they will be a little bit higher, but I still don't think that it feels anything like what you would expect in California. Think of Colorado Springs as Denver's cooler, calmer cousin. You're close enough to borrow stuff, but you still have your own vibe and your own life. You get the big city perks without the big city problems. That is why I love Colorado Springs. And I find it funny because a lot of people comment on our videos when I post videos on my TikTok of home tours. And I'm like, why hasn't this house sold? And somebody will comment, because it's in Colorado Springs. And I'm like, well, thank God it's not in Denver. I feel very passionate about this. I love Colorado Springs. I have a lot of pride being here in Colorado Springs. I love this city. And one of my favorite things about it, I love B cities.
Yeah.
B cities are the best. Denver is your A city. It's the one that people all over the world know, but just an hour south. Maybe if you live on the north side, 45 minutes south of Denver, you have the quaint little big city of Colorado Springs.
I'm not a big city person myself.
Clearly.
I do not enjoy big cities, but I love some big city activities. I love to go to sporting events. I love to go to a nice Broadway show, whatever it might be, and you get all that in Denver, but you don't have to deal with the traffic, just the number of people, just the busyness of it. When I go to Denver,
Honestly, I get frustrated every single time.
Every single
time because you're driving up I-25. Now that they got that express lane, it's pretty fast. You go through the Greenland open space and everything's beautiful, and then you get into South Denver and it's just buildings everywhere. Traffic is crazy. You get to the event, you have a good time, then you got to make the drive back, and then as soon as you get out of Denver, it's kind of a nice, easy drive to Colorado Springs. So for me, just having those amenities that I enjoy doing, it doesn't really get any better, honestly. Like I've even thought, like, man, is Colorado Springs too big? Do I want to move somewhere else? But then I would miss having all that opportunity an hour up the road.
Yeah, and so like I don't want to just hate on Denver because that'd be way too easy and way too long of a video. But some of the things that I really love about Denver. So Chris mentioned sporting events, right? Up there, you've got the Denver Nuggets, you've got the Colorado Rockies, the baseball team, you've got the greatest music venue on the planet, Red Rocks Amphitheater. And it's not only incredible to just see a show there, but it is like to artists going there, if it's their first time playing there, it's like they know the spirituality of the power and the energy behind Red Rocks Amphitheater. And so it's like, I saw Ian Munsick there for the first time, and he's from Wyoming. He's a country boy from Wyoming. And so half the amphitheater was full of people from Wyoming. And it was incredible. And he understood the magnitude of like, oh my God, I'm finally playing at Red Rocks. So you have that. You've got Meow Wolf up there. Oh my God, we didn't even mention the Denver Broncos.
I'm not a Broncos fan, so
I just don't even care about football, but there's people that do, and one of my friends does. Anyway, so other things that you have up there. Additionally, people go up there because the nightlife up there, not gonna lie, it is exceptionally better. There are, like, if you're into like going out to clubs or bars or speakeasies, it is way better than what you're gonna find in Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs is nice for just like, you're looking for a fun night out, and you can still have a lot of fun in downtown Colorado Springs, but like the options up there are way more.
Yeah.
And the food scene up there is, I think, spectacular. Now, it's still not a San Francisco. It's still not a New York, but Denver is one of the best food cities in the country. And in fact, there are multiple 5 Michelin star restaurants up in Denver alone, which is incredible. Now, we said that you're gonna be outdoors a lot, so what's the weather gonna be like? In fact, if I check the weather in the morning, does that actually have any bearing on what's gonna happen in the afternoon? Short answer, no, it doesn't. Colorado Springs, I feel like a lot of places try to give their cities this claim that they've got really kind of bipolar weather, and we absolutely experience that here in Colorado Springs. Now, the main thing that you're gonna hear, the best selling point for Colorado Springs is that we've got an average of about 300 days a year of sunshine. Sunny right now, but it's not that cut and dry. It's not like San Diego. It's not like Hawaii. We have a lot of things in between. So first off, you got to understand, we do experience all 4 seasons. My personal favorite thing about Colorado Springs, though, is that we have very long shoulder seasons. And what I consider the shoulder seasons is spring and fall. So the temperatures will get very moderate for a very long time. So we're right now in the beginning of April, and it will stay pretty moderate through late June, and it might not really feel like summer until July. That to me is glorious because it doesn't get that hot. And then it's kind of like September that the temperature just starts going down, and then you've got really moderate temperatures kind of all the way through November. Now that doesn't mean that you won't have snow in that time frame. In fact, I think the last couple of years it snowed on Memorial Day. That just kind of seems to be a trend. And it seems to snow on Halloween as well. But Colorado Springs as a whole, I just feel like is very moderate. Now, things that you're not gonna have here. You're not gonna have long extended periods over 100 degrees. A lot of times in the summer, it'll feel a lot warmer than it is because the sun is actually pretty intense. We've got a kind of a little higher UV index. So being in the sun, it definitely feels 10 to 12 degrees hotter. But if you're outside in the summer, even on the hottest day of the summer, if you're sitting in the shade, it's very manageable and very bearable. Now the winter is gonna feel kind of totally different. We only average about 39 inches a year of snow. This year, it was actually kind of crazy because I'm always telling people that winter just seems to be pretty mild out here. But this winter actually felt very wintry. It does get pretty cold. You'll have a couple weeks here and there that are in the single digits or that are in the teens. But one of the best things about Colorado Springs winters is that even if it does snow, it's not a big deal because either by the afternoon or the next day when the sun comes out, it's gonna melt all that snow. And we've got a pretty robust system for the snow plows to get through and clear up those main arteries. Now, on the flip side of that is in the summer, what you can absolutely expect is that in July timeframe, one of the most annoying things here is that we've got pretty bad hail. And so what you'll experience July and August is you'll have this afternoon monsoon season where the weather is beautiful and it might even be pretty warm, and then 4 o'clock hits and it just starts dumping. But it'll happen so fast. You'll see it build up over the mountains and then just push to the north. And if you're in like parts of the southwest or southeast parts of the city, you'll see these big thunderstorms building up and just ripping across the city, and they just pass through and then the temperature drops and it's like you have a beautiful evening. But it also comes with pretty heavy hail. And then the other thing that Colorado Springs brings with it is wind, which is funny because the place that I moved from was notorious for having ungodly winds all the time. And so when I moved up here, I remember like the first week that it was really windy, I was so mad. I was like, I moved up here to get away from the freaking wind. But what happens is that you have these storms that are moving kind of west to east, or just these fronts that are moving west to east, and they build up over the mountains and then they spill over. And so especially as you go a little bit more east, when you hit like Falcon and Peyton, the wind can get pretty freaking aggressive. And when you mix that with a pretty dry, a relatively arid climate, you actually have kind of a potential for wildfires. And behind me, you got Waldo Canyon. In 2012, that was an enormous wildfire. It was very, very dangerous. There was a lot of evacuations that happened. It destroyed a couple neighborhoods. So wildfires are definitely something that we pay a lot of attention to. I don't think it's quite as extreme as California, for example, but it seems to be pretty consistent that every year you'll be able to see, even if it's on the other side of the mountains, there will be some fires up and down the Front Range. It's just something that you have to take note of.
HOAs often get a bad rap, and sometimes it's very well deserved, but in Colorado Springs, that's not always the case. So in the Springs, we've got a wide variation of homeowners associations. So we'll start with kind of the new home communities, the new builds. Those are the ones that typically have what I would call the most strict homeowners association requirements. So these are the ones where if you leave your trash can out on the sidewalk one extra day, you're probably going to get a nasty note in the mail about it. You might even get a fine. And then the other end of the spectrum is communities that they had an HOA when the community was first designed and developed, but there's really nobody that enforces it anymore. There's not an active board to enforce those covenants anymore. And there's everything in between. So like I said, some of those homeowners associations, especially when you get into some, not just the new home communities, but some of the gated communities in town, like I think of Kissing Camels, which is up on the mesa overlooking Garden of the Gods and Pikes Peak. Golf course community, super strict, very, very, I guess I would say, old school in the mindset of the board takes care of everything. They manage everything very strictly. Everybody knows what the rules are, and everybody has to follow the rules. So you have some of these gated communities in addition to the new communities with some pretty strict HOA rules. And then there's a lot of Colorado Springs that's kind of in that middle part of it where there's rules that are in place and there's still an active HOA board, but they're just not as concerned about it. So if you park your RV on the sidewalk or in your driveway for a week or so while you're getting ready maybe for a summer camping trip, you're gonna be just fine, even though technically the rules say that you're not allowed to do that. So there's a lot of places in town where there's not even an HOA at all. And then it's kind of the wild, wild west. You can have cars in the yard and everything else. And I think just knowing that there's a good variance of options, whether you love an HOA or you just absolutely say, hey, I don't even want to think about living anywhere where there's an HOA, you're going to be able to find something in Colorado Springs that's going to fit what you're looking for. And now on the cost side of it, because that's a big negative too that I hear a lot of people say, and honestly, I agree with it, is, man, what the heck am I paying all this money for? In a new home community, you might be paying $150 a month maybe for your HOA dues, and they're shoveling the sidewalks, maybe trash is included in it. But a lot of these new communities have community centers, or they have a rec center. Maybe they have an indoor pool or an outdoor pool. So you kind of have to look at it case by case and see, am I actually getting my value out of this, or am I kind of just paying money for something that I really don't even know what it is? So I think really at the end of the day, bottom line, if you're evaluating neighborhoods, don't just look at it of HOA yes or HOA no. look into the details of it. And if you know somebody local, ask them to help you do that due diligence. They might know the neighborhoods as well. We can certainly help out with that to really help you understand exactly how strict that HOA is going to be. Maybe you thought you didn't want one, but when you look into the details of it, maybe there's a community that has an HOA that actually is the perfect fit for you.
Here's why locals skip the madness of DIA, Denver International Airport, and fly out of here instead, and why you will too, and you might actually have friends and family come visit you. So here's the thing. Colorado Springs, like we said, is about an hour and a half from Denver, specifically the Denver airport at this point, and it is the worst airport on the planet. I hate the Denver International Airport. Maybe the LA airport is close to being as bad, but the Denver International Airport, it's just a mess. It's an east and west terminal. It's very confusing. It's easy to get lost. The parking is so expensive. It's like $30 a day. But here in Colorado Springs, I'm going to show you here on the map. So we got Colorado Springs. We're down in the southeast corner. And what's cool about Colorado Springs is basically everything is like 25 minutes away. So pretty much wherever you are, it's about 25 minutes. Now, if you're coming from like very far, like Northgate, well, that might be your only time that it might make some sense to go out of Denver. But generally speaking, from everywhere that we've lived, we just go out of the Colorado Springs Airport. There's about 1 million passengers that go through there every year, which is not a ton. And the bulk of that is in the summer. We have a pretty high tourism season in the summer, not in the winter because none of the ski resorts are here. But a lot of people come in to visit Garden of the Gods, go to the Broadmoor, go hiking, and do a lot of the activities that we've already talked about. So it's a generally small airport. As of 2022, there was only 12 gates, and they've been in a constant project to expand it all the way to 24 gates. But that's still not that many. I mean, you can still see from one end to the other and at least still wave at your friends. Now, a cool addition, this was my big sticking point with the Colorado Springs Airport because I'm a little bit bougie when I travel. I like to go into the lounges because I've got that access. Colorado Springs had really they did have a lounge for a while that was on the priority pass. It was pretty lame. It was pretty small. It was not that nice. And that was like the major benefit of going up to Denver was they had a full-size lounge if you were flying out with the Centurion Lounge, for example. But if you have a priority pass, now there is a new lounge. It is called The Lounge. So don't forget that. But it is pretty nice. It's got free food, got free drinks, got little snacks and nice Wi-Fi, like private Wi-Fi in there. It's much better. So the Colorado Springs Airport, for me, it is just a much easier option. It's a lot less stress. I fly all over the country all year. And 90% of the time, if I can fly out of the Springs, that's what I'm going to opt to do. Now, if anything is a staple in Colorado Springs, it's our farmers markets. We love being outside and we love grocery shopping outside. And this is Bancroft Park right here in Old Colorado City. And on Saturdays, May through October from 9 to 2, Bancroft Park is completely full of people and tents. And these farmers for the farmers markets come from all over the state. Most notably is the Palisade Peaches. Palisade Peaches? Peaches in Colorado? I didn't know either. And then I moved here and I discovered the most delicious peaches on the freaking planet, and they're sold here. Typically they get real good like late June into July and onward, and the later that the season goes, the riper they get, and they're so freaking good. But you'll also have yak meat and bison meat and all kinds of meats from local ranches. You'll have soaps and goods and all kinds of treats and delectables and anything that you can think of. If it can be imagined, it will be here at the farmers markets. Now, what are the best farmers markets in Colorado Springs? We've already mentioned Bancroft Park down in Old Colorado City. You also have them on Wednesdays at Acacia Park. Up at Monument, there's some up there. So all you people that are really far away from the downtown area, even Woodland Park has its own farmers market. So just in case you miss, you can head out there as well. There is, if you go to the Visit Colorado Springs website, that has a full list with the full schedule of all the farmers markets. It is a major, major part of the culture and community here in Colorado Springs.
Hey, sorry to interrupt your video. My name's Sam. I'm also a part of the Beresford team, and I just want to show you real quick this relocation guide that Chris, Kyle, and I spent a ton of time putting together. This is going to have all sorts of information for you, all the high-level information about school districts, neighborhoods, areas, you name it, but also tons of insider tips, the best restaurants, breweries, parks, hikes, trails, all that sort of stuff. So make sure you reach out, click the link down below for our free relocation guide, and we'll get this straight over to you.
Now that you know more about Colorado Springs than you ever thought possible, you're probably wondering, well, where the heck am I going to live? Well, lucky for you, we have created the most comprehensive neighborhood playlist imaginable. So make sure that you check that out, download the relocation guide, and reach out when you're ready to make the move happen to Colorado Springs, because we'll take care of you.